Hello friends, let's look at the GPETS of industries now. We'll start with steel industry now and then go to semiconductor, maybe few others, pharmaceutical. Now, steel industry is a very large one today. When we were studying 50 years ago, 10 million tons, 20 million tons used to be big production. But today the annual production is 2.4 billion tons, out of which 1.4 billion tons or so is in China. The Japanese industry is still quite large, the Korean industry is still quite large, the Indian industry is also large, and declining percentages, declining furnaces are there in Europe, England and USA. So it has something to do with Forrester's industrial cycle also. Currently, China has a very large requirement for automobiles, construction, roads, dams and so on, and everything requires steel. In a sense, so it is for India. For Japan, it became in the 1980s when their car production went past the American one, that their steel production also went past the American one. When Korean car production started going up beyond maybe even the American level, European level, then the steel production was there, very large. Steel is not a general one single commodity. There are other things in it. For example, the steel for the cars is somewhat different. There are specialty steels for different purposes. But think about a product, a motor, a machine, appliance, all of them consume steel or maybe aluminium. Aluminium story is slightly different. We will not touch it today because aluminium, besides bauxite, its role, requires very high amount of electrical energy to convert that bauxite ore into aluminium. So only countries which have plenty of electricity available, like Canada, produce aluminium, or Australia. Now, we know that under the Liberty Day, 2nd April tariffs, Mr. Trump has put a little thumb, or rather big thumb, on the steel and aluminium, where he has put 10% tariffs, and that itself makes a difference in terms of who wins the game. China would have won the game, but then China tariffs are even more, though in recent China talks with USA, they have said will reduce it. The life is not that easy. If USA puts tariffs or India puts tariffs, the price of the steel goes up, and with that all the other products which are made with it, cars for example, appliances and roads and everything. So steel therefore is called a basic commodity, and it requires coke in a blast furnace and coal, so they also become basic commodities. There was a time again when we were studying that the amount of steel produced and the amount of coal produced and the amount of coal used to be the parameters of progress of our countries. Now, we cannot cover whole of the globe. We will pick up, say, European steel industry, which has been in progressive decline also, and there are multiple reasons for it, and we'll try to understand the geopolitics of that. Then do a SWOT analysis, do a PESTEL analysis, and related to do a network analysis to say where this might be going. Let's see that in terms of competitiveness of European steel industry, what are the challenges? European steel industry struggles to compete with China. Low cost, 30, 40, 50%, which has led to allegations of dumping on one hand, but closure of plants on the other. Again, till 1991, when Soviet Union was there, the Soviet Union republics, which included the East European republics, produced a lot of steel, though maybe somewhat inefficiently, but a lot of it. And once the Soviet Union broke, slowly all the factories in the Eastern European closed down in favor of the factories in the Western Europe, especially Germany, France, England. So now let's look at another angle briefly, that did steel industry remain spread out or it became monopolized? In USA, US Steel came. In UK, British Steel came. And similarly, there was another company in France. They were practical monopolists. Only by monopoly and then keeping the prices high were they able to survive. The moment the Chinese or the Japanese or the Korean competition came, they started fizzling out. And today the US Steel is a very pale shadow of what it was once the largest industry in the world. British Steel has only one plant left, that is also with the Tatas. Most of the East European plants went into the hand of Mittals, and now they formed union along with the Arsenal. So the Arsenal Arcelor Mittal company is the largest steel company in the world. So interesting. European industry, to the extent it has stayed because of the expertise of the Indians. Mittal on one hand, Tatas on the other. Now, if you look at the legacy infrastructure, it is there. Now you are aware that very large amounts of water, very large amounts of coal, etc., and labor are required for steel production. It is not easy production either. It's very tough work. So you need tough workers too, who at those salaries would be willing to work in a plant, which we know that the temperatures which go up and all that, and the carbon emitted. This is one of the most carbon emitting industry also, right? Now that is where it brings the angle in Europe, that with tougher and tougher laws, they are not able to keep the industry in Europe surviving. On the other hand, they would like to levy carbon taxes on China to be able to make money to clean up their air. Because remember, currently the amount of carbon emissions of India, China, etc. might be a bit more, but if you see the accumulated one, the Europe by far, because of the longer life cycle of the Industrial Revolution, have produced and accumulated a lot of carbon. A lot of people don't talk about it. Okay. Now, then therefore the issue of sustainability comes. The industry is under pressure to transition to more sustainable production methods, such as hydrogen-based steel production. Now, technically it's easier to say, but then you require hydrogen production, then you require storage for it, then you need transportation for it, then you need investments for it, and then why would somebody do the investment if the industry itself is declining? But it will save on the carbon taxes, therefore some people will do it. Sustainability is a good idea, stopping carbon emission is a good idea, but it costs money. Is government going to subsidize? Or are these factories going to do it? If these factories do it, they will become even more non-competitive with China, etc. That is where European Union is trying to put pressure on China, that they will put carbon tax on them. Now, let's do the SWOT analysis further. Strengths are established infrastructure. As I just said, you require water, normally near a river, and then you require huge amounts of land, and then around that the land will get dirtied, etc. So now these plants, the blast furnace plants, have this stuff, right? So if they do it under the same umbrella, then there will be no problem, they can do it. So the established infrastructure is there. Skilled workforce, same thing. Today that workforce is skilled, but they will start retiring, And would the next generation like to come into this business? There are questions marked out. Research and development. European steel companies invest in R&D, but now so do the Chinese companies, so do the Indian companies, so do the Japanese companies, so do the Korean companies. So those days are gone. That's only the Western companies will do the research and the others will have the fruits of it and pay for it. Weaknesses. Outdated technology. These blast furnaces are really outdated technology. They're inefficient and they produce a lot of carbon. High energy costs are there. Energy costs in Europe have been progressively going up. Then after the Ukraine war, stopping the gas, etc., from Russia, the German industry has come to a level of high cost that they have become unviable, right? So high energy costs are now constraint in the European steel industry. Then the dependence on imports. Once you start importing, and Europe is relying on those exports for these raw materials, it can impact the production cost and get hooked onto it. The supply chains become developed around that. After all, these are huge ships, dedicated ships, which have to import things and take things back to become viable. Now, opportunities. Hydrogen-based is a clear opportunity. Transitioning to hydrogen-based steel production can reduce carbon emissions and improve sustainability. Even in India, we should work a lot on it. The work is going on, but we don't want to kill our existing industry too. It's expensive for us to build new plants. Then modernization, investing in new infrastructure and technologies could improve efficiency and competitiveness. Today it is hydrogen or reducing their carbon footprint. Growing demand, increasing demand for sustainable and low carbon steel. Now that is a good idea. If you produce low carbon steel, then people will be willing to pay somewhat more for it and government can incentivize it. Now these are the opportunities for established European steel producers. Now what are the threats? Threats are, now we are talking about today European steel producers. Basically it is Mittal. They monopolize the whole steel industry. So they will get the subsidies, right? Similarly, British Steel, they will get the subsidy for surviving. Or shake a hand with Mr. Trump and get your tariffs reduced to zero. Now, Chinese competition, low-cost steel, poses a significant threat to European steel producers. They have their own ships now, and the logistics are very good, and the logistics are also less expensive. So it's a kind of throttling of the industry that way. Not for any bad reasons or from bad motives, but the circumstances of it. Then there is a global overcapacity. Now, overcapacity in the steel industry means that for today, I may not fire the blast furnace, and after 3 months I fire it. Now, if I fire it, it is an extra capacity. So as soon as people get some contracts, they fire the blast furnaces. So this is a peculiarity again. Now, regulatory chemical plant, normally you can't do it. Regulatory challenges are stricter environmental regulations, obvious. They could increase costs and impact competitiveness. Next one, please. Now let's do the PESTEL analysis after this quick SWOT. And let's start with political trade policies. European trade policies and anti-dumping measures could impact the competitiveness of Chinese steel imports, and they have got themselves primed for it now. And in their negotiation with China, they will include these things. Environmental regulations, again, European Union is becoming stricter and stricter and stricter, and that could drive the transition to more sustainable steel production methods, okay, like low carbon steel or using hydrogen. So the European policy is to put pressure to go in that direction. Global demand, fluctuation in global demand for steel could impact production level. Now, once Chinese economy becomes stabilized, then there will be a lot of extra production capacity. But it is at that time that India would be needing it and the other developing countries would be needing it more than anything else. Now, energy costs. Changes in energy costs could impact the competitiveness of European steel production, and using solar, because normally these steel plants are outside in the rural areas and so on. They could use solar, and therefore they could use cheaper electricity, or lucky countries like India and China now could go for hydroelectric plants, Nepal and so on. Sustainability is growing concerns about sustainability and climate change can derive demand for low carbon steel. We are emphasizing it, that kind of production line. Workforce skills, industry's ability to attract and retain skilled workers could impact its competitiveness. As I said, after retirement, maybe the next generation is very hesitant to come into this particular line. Tata do a lot of training. Mittal also does a lot of training. So the Indian company and background people are quite good at training their workforces. Technologically, hydrogen based, and any advancements in that steel production could survive and be sustainable. Then the digitalization, more and more digitalization is there. Industry 4.2, or 4.0 technologies can improve efficiency and productivity in steel production. Briefly again, environmental, carbon emissions, levels are known, today measurement technologies are available, and anything which is more than above something, carbon tax will be levied, so that will be the cost. So industries, carbon footprint is a major concern. It's a very dirty industry in that sense. Resource efficiency, improving resource efficiency could reduce waste and improve sustainability at every level, which we should do for all the Industry 4.0 technologies. Reduce the waste, improve the productivity, use technology, use digitalization, use hydrogen, use cleaner fuels, use solar, use wind, and so on. Now, legally, regulatory compliance, these regulations are becoming quite important and detailed, so people have to be aware of how to manage them, study them, and so on. Intellectual property is also becoming stronger and stronger. Now that India has started producing intellectual property, we don't oppose it that much as we used to. So related to new technologies, the production method is crucial. So maybe these old European steel industries could become consultants for technology, right? And let it be produced wherever it would be produced. Network analysis, supply chain is one. The steel industry supply chain is complex with multiple stakeholders and dependency in that, including the warehouses have to be very large. Chinese use the ship itself as a warehouse, so it is like just in time. The steel comes and gets used in the car plant. Partnerships, yes, collaboration and partnership between steel producers, technology providers and research institutions can drive innovation and sustainability. Industry association's role is very important, country-wise and broadly globally. They collect a lot of data. We are not talking data here. We can always go to their websites and get the latest data. And they also do a lot of lobbying for the industry and so that the taxes go down, etc. So with this, we say that this is also an ongoing story. Steel is going to be ever needed, even for replacement demand, for bridges and so on and so forth. Less or more will be a different question, but global demand and production currently about balanced is 2.4 billion tons. 2.4 billion tons. So single largest amount of any other industry. Thank you very much.